Okay, so picture this. You're in the middle of the Ice Age, right? And all around you are these just incredible creatures like saber-toothed cats and mastodons, and then there it is, a direwolf.
A creature of legend and myth.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're famous from Game of Thrones and stuff, but I'm talking about the real animal.
Oh, right, of course, the actual Inoceandirus.
Exactly. And guess what scientists have managed to do?
Bring them back.
They've brought back the dire wolf.
It's unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
We're talking full-on de-extinction.
I know, and that's what we're diving deep into today here on All Sorts podcast, all the juicy details about how they did it and what it all means.
And we've got a ton of sources to work with here. Live Science, CNN, USA Today, Time. They've all got something to say about this.
So much to unpack. I mean, this isn't just a headline. This is like a whole new chapter in scientific history.
Exactly.
So are you ready to step back in time and really meet the dire wolf?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. So first things first, these guys vanished from the Earth, what, like 12,500 to 13,000 years ago, right around the end of the last ice age?
Yeah, that's the general consensus. And they had a pretty impressive run before that, too, roaming all over North America.
I mean, we're talking from Venezuela all the way up to Canada. That's a huge range.
Yeah, they were sharing the landscape with some pretty iconic Ice Age giants, too, like those saber-toothed cats you mentioned, and, of course, the mastodons.
Oh, and speaking of icons, can we just take a second to appreciate the direwolf's place in pop culture?
Oh, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
Game of Thrones, obviously everyone thinks of House Stark and their sigil.
It's just so cool how George R.R. Martin took inspiration from a real animal and made it this symbol of strength and loyalty.
That goes beyond Game of Thrones, too. There's a Grateful Dead song, Dire Wolf, I think it's called.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one. And they pop up in video games and tabletop games, too.
It's like they capture our imagination, even though they've been gone for so long.
All right, let's talk about what made them so special in the real world. I mean, they were wolves, but they were different, right?
Oh, yeah. Way different. For starters, they were significantly bigger than the gray wolves we see today, and like 25% larger.
Oh. Wow, so how big are we talking?
Well, imagine a wolf that could be up to 6 feet long.
6 feet. That's like taller than me.
Yeah, pretty much. And they could stand about 3.5 feet tall at the shoulder and weigh up to 150 pounds.
That's a big dog.
A big and powerful one. They had these thick, muscular legs, strong shoulders, and a wider head and snout than gray wolves.
And their teeth.
Oh, yeah. Their teeth were something else much larger, more robust, built for taking down some seriously large prey.
Which brings up a really interesting question. Why did they go extinct when gray wolves survived?
Yeah, that's a bit of a mystery. But the leading theory is that dire wolves were super specialized hunters. They were adapted to taking down those huge Ice Age herbivores like mammoths and giant bison.
So when those megafauna went extinct?
The dire wolves lost their main food source, and they just couldn't adapt to hunting smaller, faster prey.
Whereas gray wolves
were more generalist hunters. They could go after a wider variety of animals.
So they were able to weather the changes.
Exactly. And studying the dire wolf's DNA to get more clues about their extinction is tricky, too, because a lot of their remains are found in places like the La Brea tar pits.
Oh, yeah. Those tar pits are famous for preserving fossils, but
the tar itself can damage the DNA, making it harder to extract and analyze.
Okay, so we've got this extinct animal with some serious mystery surrounding it, and then bam, Colossal Biosciences steps onto the scene.
The same company that's trying to bring back the woolly mammoth.
And they drop this bombshell. They've brought back the dire wolf.
They call it the world's first de-extinction.
I mean, they've actually got 3 dire wolf pups living and breathing right now. Romulus and Remus born back in October 2024, and then Khaleesi born just this past January.
As of April 7th, Romulus and Remus are 6 months old. So this is very real and very recent.
So how did they pull this off? I mean, where do you even begin with something like that?
Well, it all starts with the dire wolf's genome, their complete genetic blueprint.
Yeah.
They managed to reconstruct it from ancient DNA.
Wait, seriously? From fossils?
Yeah, they used a 13,000-year-old tooth from Ohio and a 72,000-year-old skull from Idaho.
Wow, and I guess they had to choose those samples carefully, right?
Oh, absolutely. They specifically targeted the petrous bone in the skull. It's a really dense inner ear bone that's known to preserve DNA remarkably well.
So it's like a little time capsule for genetic material.
Exactly. And once they had that ancient DNA, they compared it to the genomes of living catiaids like gray wolves, jackals, foxes.
To figure out what made the dire wolf unique.
Exactly. They pinpointed 20 key genetic differences across 14 genes that they believe are responsible for things like the dire wolf's size white coat, larger teeth, and even their distinctive howl.
Okay, so they've got the genetic blueprint, but how do you go from that to an actual living animal?
Enter CRISPR gene editing.
I like a super precise molecular scalpel that allows you to cut and paste specific DNA sequences.
So they used CRISPR to edit the genes of modern-day gray wolves.
Exactly. They made 20 specific edits in those 14 genes to match the direwolf sequences. And they got the gray wolf cells from blood samples.
Yep, a much less invasive method than traditional tissue biopsies.
So it's important to note that they weren't directly inserting ancient direwolf DNA into the gray wolf genome.
Right. They were essentially rewriting specific parts of the gray wolf's existing genetic code to match the dire wolf blueprint.
So then what?
Well, they took the nucleus from these edited gray wolf cells, which now contained the dire wolf-like genes, and transferred it into gray wolf egg cells that had their own nuclei removed.
It's like a cellular switcheroo?
Yeah, kind of. And then they let those eggs develop into embryos, 45 of them in total.
45 potential dire wolf embryos.
And those embryos were implanted into surrogate mothers.
Surrogate mothers.
So they used domestic dogs, specifically large mixed-breed hounds, chosen for their health and size because those pups were going to be big.
And incredibly, 3 of those pregnancies were successful.
Leading to the birth of Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi via cesarean section.
It's like something out of a science fiction movie.
I know, right? And, one of the first things they noticed about the pups was their fur.
Their fur?
Yeah, all 3 of them were born with thick white fur.
Which...
A trait associated with some Ice Age wolf populations.
Yeah.
So it seems those genetic edits are doing what they were designed to do.
It's just incredible, and Colossal even released footage of the pups in their early days taking their first steps, letting out those first howls.
It's really amazing to see those images and hear those sounds. It's like a window into the past.
And the CEO of Colossal, Ben Lamb, he said the technology feels like magic.
Which, in a way, it kind of is. I mean, this is a whole new level of biological engineering.
All right, so let's break down the science a little more because it sounds pretty similar to how Dolly the sheep was cloned, but with some key differences, right?
Exactly. With Dolly, they had a complete self from the sheep they wanted to clone.
With the dire wolf,
they were working with fragmented ancient DNA. So they had to essentially rebuild the genetic blueprint before they could even think about cloning.
So they kind of reverse engineered the dire wolf.
Yeah, so that's a good way to put it. And the choice of gray wolves as egg donors was really strategic.
Because
they're the closest living relatives to dire wolves, sharing about 99.5% of their DNA. So that made it much more likely that the embryos would develop successfully.
And you mentioned the white fur earlier. There's actually a really cool story behind that because the genes for a light coat in dire wolves are similar to genes in gray wolves that can cause deafness and blindness.
Yeah, that's a tricky situation. But colossal scientists found a way around it. They engineered other genes to shut down the production of black and red pigments so they could get the white fur without those negative side effects.
Wow. So they had to really think outside the box to solve that problem.
Absolutely. And another cool thing is that they used endothelial progenitor cells, or EPCs, from the gray wolf blood to do the gene editing.
EPCs.
They're special cells that can develop into other cell types. And using them meant they didn't have to do invasive biopsies to get the gray wolf DNA.
So it was a much gentler approach?
Exactly. And again, it's important to remember they were editing existing gray wolf genes. They weren't splicing in ancient dire wolf DNA directly.
Okay, so they've got the embryos, they've got the surrogate mothers. What happens next?
Well, after the pups were born, they were cared for by the surrogate dogs initially, which is really important for early development and bonding.
It's like a natural foster care system.
Yeah. But later, the Colossal team transitioned the pups to bottle feeding so they could closely monitor their nutrition and health.
So where are the pups now?
They're living in a specially designed 2,000-acre ecological preserve at an undisclosed location.
Undisclosed?
Yeah, they're keeping the location secret for the pups' safety, and the facility is pretty impressive, too. It's certified by the American Humane Society and registered with the USDA.
So they're getting top-notch care?
Oh, yeah. They have a dedicated veterinary clinic, shelters for extreme weather, and natural dens to mimic their ancestral environment.
And what are they eating?
A mix of meat, beef, horse, deer, and puppy chow to make sure they're getting all the nutrients they need.
Sounds like they're thriving. Okay, so we've talked about how they did it, but what does this all mean? What are the implications of bringing back the dire wolf?
Well, Colossal sees this as proof that their de-extinction technology works, and they believe they can apply it to other extinct species, like the woolly mammoth, the dodo, and the Tasmanian tiger.
So this is just the beginning?
Potentially. And they also see this technology as a powerful tool for conserving endangered species.
Like with the red wolf.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They actually used a less invasive cloning method that they developed during the dire wolf research to clone red wolves. which could help bolster their dwindling population.
That's amazing. And what about the cultural impact? I mean, the dire wolf is a pretty significant animal for some indigenous groups, right?
Definitely. The MHA Nation, which represents the Mandan Hidatsa and Arikara tribes, has expressed a lot of excitement about the dire wolf's return.
They see it as a symbol of their ancestral connection to the wild.
Yeah, and a reminder of their responsibility to be stewards of the land. They've even talked about potentially having dire wolves on their lands in the future.
So this project has really resonated with them on a deep level.
Absolutely. And of course, it's been a huge media event. Everyone's talking about it.
But there are some scientists who are a bit skeptical, right?
Yeah, some like Dr. Julie Meechan acknowledge the technical achievement, but they point out that these pups are genetically mostly gray wolf, with only a small percentage of dire wolf genes.
Which raises a really interesting question. What makes an animal a dire wolf? Is it just the genes or is it something more?
That's a big one. And Colossal's lead scientist, Beth Shapiro, says that if these animals look, act, and fill the ecological role of a dire wolf, then it's a successful de-extinction.
So it's about function as much as genetics.
Exactly. And then there are the ethical considerations.
Yeah, like, is it right to bring back extinct animals?
And what about the potential impact on modern ecosystems? Could they become invasive?
And what about the well-being of the surrogate animals?
Colossal says they're taking all those things into consideration. They're very careful about animal welfare, and they believe their technology could actually help prevent extinctions in the future.
So it's a complex issue with no easy answers.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second and recap what we've learned. We've got these 3 dire wolf pups, Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi, brought back from extinction through a remarkable feat of genetic engineering.
They took ancient DNA, combined it with modern gene editing technology, and bam, dire wolf pups.
And it sparked a huge debate about what de-extinction really means and the ethical implications of this kind of technology.
It's a story that's captured the world's attention,
Right.
and it's really made us think about our relationship with the natural world.
It really makes you wonder what our responsibility is to those species that are gone and those that are still struggling to survive.
And does the return of the dire wolf offer a glimmer of hope in the face of extinction? Or does it raise even more profound questions about our role in the balance of nature?
It's definitely something to ponder. But for now, we're just going to have to wait and see what the future holds for these incredible animals.
And for the field of de-extinction as a whole?
If this deep dive into the past and the future of life on Earth has sparked your curiosity, then we'd love for you to join us here at All Sorts Podcasts. Hit that like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of our future explorations.
And be sure to check out our archives. We've got a ton of other deep dives on all sorts of fascinating topics.
And you can keep the conversation going by following us on X, Instagram, and Threads.
We're always excited to hear from our listeners and share our passion for the unknown.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those minds open.
And maybe, just maybe, we'll see you back here on All Sorts Podcast
For another deep dive into the wild world of science and history.
See you then.